Let's now go to WION's London Bureau Chief, Mandy Clark, joining us on the very latest on this incident. Mandy, thanks for joining us. Certainly a tragic situation at Manchester where concert goers were just simply enjoying music before those explosions took place. Mandy, you're live in Manchester. What's the mood like there on the ground, a little bit more than 12 hours after those blasts took place?
Well, for the handful of people I've spoken to, the mood is that of shock. That many people didn't really expect Manchester to be targeted, especially a concert venue, one that would really attract teenage girls. But it is a soft target. The people of Manchester just seem to be sickened by the attack, and it's the worst one they have seen. So it's a mood of shock, despair, and lots of people kind of wandering aimlessly. Just behind me is the scene of the attack. This is the Manchester Arena where the attack happened. We've seen a lot of people come and report and just seem to be gathering their thoughts about what happened last night.
Mandy, this is not the first time such a situation has happened on European soil. I mean, we've covered the London terror attack, in fact, wall to wall. We see from November of 2015, the Paris attack, Brussels, London, the situations where people were plowing vehicles in Nice and Berlin. And then now this. I mean, it really seems that Europeans are sort of getting immune to it, if I'd like to call it. But, why is Europe such a breeding ground for either terror groups or, in this case, lone wolf attackers, specifically for terror-related situations?
Well, it seems that Europe is a prime target because it generates the headlines that, many other places in the world do get terror attacks, but when it hits European soil, it does make international headlines, and a lot of these attackers are vain, and they do want to get the most terror, the most fear out there. Terror attacks are definitely on the rise, though, and we are seeing that. ISIS, the Islamic State, although we don't know who's behind it, but in the past they have told their so-called soldiers, the followers of their extreme versions of terrorism, to commit atrocities on foreign soil, on European soil, to bring the war to Europe, and some of those attacks are certainly linked to that ethos, to that mentality. Of course, we don't know who's behind the attack, and the police have asked not to speculate if any group is involved or if it was simply just a lone wolf attack.
Mandy, also really quickly, I also want to ask you with regards to this, the June 8th elections coming up in the UK with Theresa May. They've suspended campaigning as a mark of respect for the victims. Certainly that is now going to be a front and center issue, almost very similar to what happened in France during their presidential election. Security, national security, when it comes to specifically related to terror, sort of topping the agenda yet again.
Yes, of course, when it came to France, it was that police officer who was killed just a few days before the French presidential elections. This coming just weeks before Britain's general election, but it's not necessarily going to affect it. In fact, when it came to France's elections, they didn't vote for fear. They didn't vote for higher security and Marine Le Pen. They did pick a more centrist person, so it doesn't necessarily denote how people are going to vote. Every political party here in Britain has reiterated that they stand against terrorism and have suspended their election campaign. But certainly the Conservatives, the ruling party, is seen to be the stronger party that stands against terrorism and has committed to putting resources into fighting terrorism. That would be the opposition party, Labour's party's weakest point is security. So in that way, it could play out in the elections as well. It could be a factor.
Mandy, also really quickly, I want to bring our viewers up to speed. The mayor of London just a few hours ago actually has sent out a message saying he stands united. London stands united with the city of Manchester after the barbaric and sickening act. It was a cowardly act of terrorism that was targeted at a concert where there were thousands of children and young people. He says, my heart goes out to the victims, their families, and everybody affected once again. They are seen as the heroism of our brave emergency services, and he is in constant contact with the Metropolitan Police. So again, extra police stepping up in London as well, possibly because of copycat situations that may unfold. I mean, this will draw parallel to what happened in London back in March. Mandy, at this point, let's describe Manchester for our viewers. How far is it? What is the demographic makeup of Manchester, and what are you sort of the chatter that you're picking up from on the ground there after more than 14 hours now since the attack happened?
Well, Manchester is a northern city. It's probably one of the biggest northern cities. It's very multicultural. It made its mark as an industrial town, and there's always been a bit of northern grit to Manchester. But it's seen as very dynamic. And it has many cultures mixing in together. It's probably one of the wealthier northern cities. The wealth is divided in the UK, really north and south, but Manchester is a pocket of wealth. And of course, it's really England's second city, so you're going to see, big concerts, and a lot of people come to Manchester. The mood is somber, it's shock, but Manchester doesn't really attract those terror attacks that London seems to, because London is the capital. So it's the first major incident with such high casualties that the city has seen, and the inhabitants of Manchester certainly seem caught off guard, upset, and just walking around the scene, trying to take it all in. We've seen quite a few bystanders just looking, not saying much, because just behind me is the scene of the attack, which has been cordoned off, and it will continue to be cordoned off until that forensic work has been finished.
All right, Mandy, we'll have you stand by just a minute. Let's get some reaction now coming in with regard to the Manchester attack. Donald Trump has called the attackers who carried out the terror attack at Ariana Grande's pop concert as losers. Speaking on Tuesday morning after a meeting in Bethlehem with Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas, Trump expressed his condolences and said the attack was the work of losers. Trump said the attack preyed on innocent children. Let's listen into some reaction.
We stand in absolute solidarity with the people of the United Kingdom. So many young, beautiful, innocent people living and enjoying their lives murdered by evil losers in life.
Yeah, Mandy, world reaction already pouring in. We saw Donald Trump there, who took a moment to talk about what happened there. At this point, Theresa May, she is having an emergency meeting with some of the security officials there. What are we expecting the British government at this point to sort of address in the coming days and coming hours after this concert attack? We do also know that Ariana Grande has canceled the rest of her tour, including a stop in London.
Well, what we can expect is security services are going to make a decision whether that security threat should be moved higher. Currently, it is at the second highest level, which is severe. But if they feel that there is an imminent terror attack, then it will move to the highest, which is critical, and that's when you're going to see tons more police on the streets. That's the type of decisions they'll be making in this emergency COBRA meeting, which is where security services brief the Prime Minister. We aren't necessarily expecting that security threat to rise, but we'll see what comes out of that meeting. As for Ariana Grande canceling the rest of her tour, that makes sense. It's a tragic incident that has happened. It would be very difficult to continue. Certainly, she seems to be wearing some of the responsibility. She has said on Twitter that she feels broken because of the incident. So it's not surprising. It's upsetting for many of her fans, but I think certainly in the UK they will understand why there was a need to postpone this tour.
All right, Mandy, you stand by really quickly. Speaking of Ariana Grande, let's listen into what she had to say. She actually took to Twitter and she talked about the situation, saying her heart was broken. This is where the concert took place Monday night. Right now, Ariana Grande has suspended her world tour after the terror attack in Manchester. She also will not be performing Thursday in London. She's in fact decided to pull out of the entire European leg of her tour, putting it on hold. She was set to perform in England, Belgium, Poland, Germany, Switzerland, France, Portugal and Italy over the span of the next 4 weeks. Ariana Grande deciding to sort of take a moment to recognize what happened and pay tribute to those victims. Let's go back to Mandy Clark standing outside of in Manchester, where all of this unfolded about 14 hours ago. In fact, you can just paint the scene. A busy Monday night, 10:30 in the evening, lots of children with their parents, lots of teens, lots of fans enjoying music on a Monday night. You wouldn't expect, especially in a place like Manchester, for something like this to happen. What's the chatter there on the ground, Mandy? Are people a little bit more resilient now, especially after these string of attacks?
Well, I think for the people in Manchester, it is a surprise that resilience tends to come after a city has had a number of attacks. You see resilience very quickly on the streets of London, but London is no stranger to terrorism. Here, it is a new incident for Manchester, and there's a mood more of shock. Certainly there's no sense of giving into terrorism, but it's just the absolute shock that it could happen. And as you say, it happened at a concert venue on a Monday night, lots of children. And it happened at the very end of the concert in the foyer of the Manchester Arena, where parents would be coming to collect their teenagers, and the people who would be attending this type of concert, for most of our fans, are these young girls, young preteens to teenagers, perhaps some of them in their 20s, but they're very young people at the prime of their life who'd be just looking forward to a good night out that was supposed to create happy memories. It was some of the most vulnerable people who were attacked, since they have nothing to do with terrorism, but that is the point essentially of a terror attack, to cause that chaos and fear among the population.
All right, Manny, we'll have you stand by for just a moment. Let's also get some more reaction from the ground when all of this happened, some of the eyewitness reaction, those who saw those blasts unfold right in front of them. Let's listen in.
It was literally just a minute after it ended. Lights came on and bomb went off.
And what could you hear? What did you hear?
Just screams, people are shouting, there's a bomb, it's just balloons, it's a speaker that's popped or something. Everyone was confused, no one knew. But the sound itself was just the loudest noise I've heard.
We entered the venue, a few people that we spoke to, like friends that we'd met before and after the gig, they said their bags weren't checked or anything like that, and usually, like, I'm quite a regular gig goer, so I'm used to getting bags checked for security purposes, but there was no, just scanned the ticket, went straight in, no security checks whatsoever.
Out of the concert towards the doors, and we went to the wrong doors originally, and I said to my sister, these are the wrong doors, we need to go to a different set. So we started walking down to the other set, and that's when we heard an explosion. So I was like, we need to run. So we started running, we ran straight out the doors all the way down to the hotel, and all I could hear was screaming, people crying, everyone was just running everywhere. It was completely madness.
So everyone kind of calmed around us, and then all of a sudden everyone just started screaming and running in every direction, and there was one girl, diagonal, wasn't there? And she tumbled. She tumbled from over the seat.
All right, Manny, that was some of the reaction that we heard from the eyewitnesses there on the ground moments after that happened. I mean, certainly, at this point, we don't have the identity of the victims. Right now, the death toll stands at 22. 22 people killed in that attack and more than 59 others hurt. That was the latest that we have, according to the Met and other police agencies. Still, certainly, that is, any life lost is too many. A lot of those, unfortunately, could be kids. So it sort of makes the situation from bad to worse. I mean, almost leaves you wondering why, why that area, and was it perhaps because it was sort of unknown, perhaps it isn't the London or it isn't the Paris or the Brussels where there could be more security, but perhaps at a concert where you have Ariana Grande fans, things may have been a little bit easier. I mean, who takes the blame in all of this? That is sort of the ultimate question. Can this be prevented, or could this have been prevented?
I think when it comes to lone wolf attacks, it's one of the most difficult things to defend against, and that's what we hear over and over again by the security forces, that it is so difficult to stop a lone wolf attack, though we don't know if he necessarily is. This attacker could have been part of a wider network, but when they are part of that wider network, it gives the police the opportunity to pick up chatter and communications. When they're not, it's very difficult. Of course, this happened at the end, and there is less security checks because generally it's parents coming to collect people from the concert itself. I spoke to one counterterrorism officer earlier today, and he said that is just generally the case. They don't perform those bag checks at the very end because it is those people just collecting and to help move the people. That is generally how it seems. So there will likely be a change in security after this incident.
All right, Mandy, we'll have you stand by for a second. Let's actually go and listen into the mayor of Manchester. We heard from the London mayor a short while ago. Let's listen into that and see how things are taking place there as the city and the area continues to deal with this tragic situation.
After our darkest of nights, Manchester is today waking up to the most difficult of dawns. These were children, young people and their families that those responsible chose to terrorise and kill. they won't win. We are grieving, we are hurt today, but as I said at the beginning, we are strong.
The victims seem to be very young people. It is clearly an attack to the European youth, and I believe young Europeans will continue to value their way of life, their freedom, their joy, their living together.
That was, of course, some of the reactions coming in from Manchester just a short while ago. In fact, British Prime Minister Theresa May also gave a statement in Downing Street after the terror attack in Manchester. Mandy, you know, earlier we were reporting this as well after the situation in July of 2005 where about 52 people were killed after 4 British Muslims attacked the transportation system. This could be the second deadliest terror situation in UK. At this point, UK sort of dealing with a lot, especially after the London terror attack a few months ago. The situation, unfortunately, not getting any better at this point. What are you picking up about the terror level, and what does that indicate going forward?
Well, currently, what we do know is still at severe, which is the second highest level, and it's been at severe for a long time. The UK has become a prime target for terrorists over the last few years. And some of it has been linked to the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, but largely we have seen one of the bigger factors has been the collapse of Syria and the rise of the Islamic State, and a lot of fighters, in fact, being homegrown terrorists from Britain, and some of them coming back. So that has been one of the concerns, although we don't have any idea of who was behind this attack, and certainly the police are keeping the investigation as wide as possible. They don't want to put assumptions on it, but that has, in the past, that has been what we've seen in regards to recent terror attacks. So there will be the reason why they have been these terror attacks that have like the hallmarks of what we've seen in Paris and in Brussels is they're attacking the public at large, and really it's a message to the European public that the way of life is unacceptable and that they are targets too. If it is from the Islamic State, it will certainly be a great victory for them in their mindset. It is the biggest terror attack to have ever hit Manchester.
And Mandy, we have some breaking news to get to our viewers right this moment. The UK Terrorism Police has said that a 23-year-old man has been arrested with regards to last night's incident in Manchester. They have confirmed that a 23-year-old man was arrested in South Manchester. They're not providing his name or other details at this point. We just have that he's male, he's 23 years old, and he's from South Manchester. So this sort of also sort of clarifies the doubt that we had earlier that this wasn't necessarily, or at least from what we can make of it now, not related to any kind of terror groups. Typically in situations like these, you see groups like ISIS or any other groups that jump in, Al-Qaeda or whatever, jumping in and claiming responsibility. But this point certainly looks like a lone wolf attacker. The fact that there's also an arrest that's been made is crucial as investigators sort of piece together and understand the big question, why? Any kind of information you're able to pick up from your sources at this point, Mandy? What are investigators going to have to do to sort of bring more closure to the families and victims?
Well, certainly, I think finding out who's behind it and why, and if they can stop it, would be what is the only condolence that any family could get. But you know, this arrest could be family members, could be who the attacker was living with. We do know the person who was arrested could not have been the attacker because police have said that it was a suicide bomber who died at the scene. So this person might be a person of interest who is connected to the attacker in some way. Of course, the arrest might just mean further questioning of this person, or it could indicate a wider network. It is the police work that's ongoing, and they plan to cast this net very wide to make sure they don't miss any people, any loopholes, and they close down any further terror attacks. And that is the big threat looking forward, is further terror attacks or even copycat ones.